Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is the Hangout. It's a live show that we do from time to time, usually Thursday nights at 7, but we had to call a little bit of an audible today because I had some things I had to do. But thank you so much for being here. By the way, if you are here watching this live, I appreciate that. I like to do little icebreakers so we can get everybody involved in the chat. So if you're here watching live, go ahead and do me a favor. Tell me what your favorite Batman story is, because today we are talking about Batman. I just finished reading a ton of Batman books for BATOBER, and we're going to talk about my thoughts on pretty much all of them. Steven, my delivery is actually here. I grabbed it out of the mailbox maybe an hour ago, but I'm going to unbox it in a separate video. But yeah, I appreciate you, bro. I'm excited about that. Valzad's here. My man Tim is here. He understands why people like Gotham by Gaslight now. I've never read Gotham by Gaslight, although I do have it. I watched the movie, which is not the same thing. What it do, comic babies? Bunkmaster B's here. I thought you were out celebrating something significant, like the anniversary of someone's birth, something like that. What is happening right now? Windows has that stupid thing where like the news takes over half of your screen, and I couldn't get it away. And Bunk's favorite Batman story is Batman Huntress Cry for Blood, which is hardly a Batman story. I've read it. I should know. So yeah, if you're watching this live, I appreciate you being here. If you're watching this on the replay, thank you. I used to say you can catch us live next week at 7, but we're not going to be streaming next week. I do these like once a month at best. So I'm excited that you're here, and thanks for watching on the replay as well. Let me know. I don't know. You can put replay gang, hashtag replay gang in the comments. Now, before we get too much further into the show, we do have a special guest, but I want to shout out some people first. So before we get any deeper into here, got to shout out the people that make this possible, of course. Thank you to the channel family. Those of you who have decided to contribute a couple of shekels every month to keep this channel going. You are the reason that we can actually stream, have a channel, all of it. So I appreciate you all. You know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, they're the ones that have the badges next to their names in the chat. So I think our longest tenured members have finally earned the coveted Batman badge, which means they have been channel members for over a year, which is really cool. Really cool. If they make it another year, they will get the classic Batman logo as their badge, which will be really awesome to see. So thank you to you guys. And another huge shout out to Organic Price Books, our channel sponsor, the best place to go for collected editions. I keep collected editions around me at most times. Here's one, right? So you can go to Organic Price Books and grab trade paperbacks, hardcovers, omnibus, all of that. And you can grab them for discounted prices there. And even more of a discount if you use my coupon code at checkout. So now that all of that housekeeping is out of the way, once again, I've got a special guest here. I didn't even tell you guys when anybody was coming, but you know, you can't have the return of the Hangout without the return of special guests. So welcome to the chat, Mr. Danny J. Quick. How's it going, sir?
What's good, brethren, man? It's good to see you. It's good to be hanging out for sure.
It's certainly good to be seen. How's
Man,
your day?
my day is going good, man. I was just thinking, what is my favorite Batman story? Like, I think just because recently I read The Bat Who Laughs,
Okay.
that one's pretty high up there. I think. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
Batman has some. I think most of my favorite Batman stuff is with the Justice League, though. Like, I don't know if I have a ton of favorite Batman solo stories. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
Where I'm biased. I have a lot of favorite Batman stories. I don't know if I can really even narrow it down to a top 5. I was supposed to be doing like a top 5 for a video. That was the whole point of Battober, was for me to narrow down my list. And what happened was I kept reading more Batman, and liking more Batman. It was just harder and harder to rank things that I've read. But off the top of my head, a few of my favorites. I love Batman Ego by Darwin Cook. He wrote and drew it, and I did a video about it last year when the Battinson movie was coming out. But it's a it's a cool story about, I guess, the role that Batman plays in Bruce Wayne's head. Like it kind of like this weird like split personality type thing, and I thought that was an interesting take on who Batman is. Some newer stuff that I read. I read White Knight like last week.
Okay.
Um, I like that a lot too. It was interesting. I'll get into it a little bit later, but I like that. It was a very it felt fresh, although for me, because White Knight came out in like 2017, 2018.
Mhm.
I started reading comics in 2019. I've pretty much just been reading everything current. Like the Gotham War just ended this week. I read that.
Mhm.
Um, but White Knight, there's a lot of things that are presented in White Knight or tackled in White Knight, and then you see them in the mainline stuff ever since, like little seeds of like stuff that Sean Murphy did in White Knight that were done better in White Knight than they were in the main universe. And I think some ideas just work better as Elseworlds. I think that's why White Knight is just so good. Um,
I don't know. I think do you prefer superhero Batman or detective Batman? Like,
my favorite stories are Detective Batman.
yeah, I'm more of a detective Batman, like what was it, the Long Halloween Batman,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a good one. Not maybe year one Batman, like
Mhm.
those stories are I think are my I on like in the comics though, because now that I'm thinking about it, like all the Justice League Batman stuff is definitely superhero Batman,
Right, right.
stuff. Um, dodging the Omega Beam Batman
Mhm.
is dope in the animation, but like in the comics, I think I prefer Detective Batman.
Yeah, I think Detective Batman, like, that really showcases the thing that Batman does that no one else really can.
Mm,
Like, others can, but they don't really that's not the draw to other characters. And so, it's cool that Batman can, stand toe to toe with Superman and some of the other super powered beings. But what I like about Batman isn't him being all super heroic. It's the
mhm,
detective work, it's the inner monologue,
mhm.
uh, it's him fighting gangsters and corrupt politicians. Like that's the stuff that I gravitate toward. But what I like about Batman is he can kind of do it all, and it never really feels out of place.
Yeah.
Like even from like skydiving from the moon, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he's got the suit that can withstand the entering Earth's atmosphere and
Right.
crashing to the ground and all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. I'm with
All
you
of
on
it.
that.
That's hilarious. Oh man, Tim says my favorite Batman story is the Joker War. I liked the Joker War. I wouldn't put it up there with my favorites.
The Joker War? How come what was that one?
The Joker War was very recent. The Joker War came out, um, was that 2020?
Yeah, 2020 it
2021?
says. I think
2020.
I missed that one. I must have missed that one.
I read it. It was coming out like I feel like it was coming out at the same time as like Dark Knight's Death Metal and all that.
Hmm.
I remember it because funny enough, I read pretty much all of the Joker War the weekend right before we found out my wife was pregnant with Squeak.
Oh wow.
So like I remember reading it because I binge read that and a bunch of death metal tie-ins
Hmm.
in the hotel that we were staying at. But yeah, it basically the Joker finds out Batman's identity and uses it against him in a way that only the Joker could.
Oh
Uh,
no, not the Joker doing that.
right. And it's interesting. There have been some lasting effects, even up to now. Um, Batman doesn't have as much money as he used to because
Mm,
of that event. There were some interesting things that happened in it. It's got pretty good art, but overall, I think the best thing that happened in the Joker War was that we got Nightwing back.
nice.
Like,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't want to spoil the Joker War, so I'll stop talking. Um, Valzad says his favorite is either Court of Owls or Tower of Babel. Court of Owls is one of the first Batman stories I read in comics, and I
So
like.
that's definitely two great ones.
Yeah, and
Um,
Tower of Babel I would put in my top 10, if not my top 5, because
yeah,
it's really a Justice League story, but
yeah, yeah.
it's the story you point to as proof that Batman can be anybody, though.
Right. I'm with it. I get in with superhero Batman, every now and then, but it's I mean Bats is he's got so many stories, and even today, like I think people are using Batman to tell like their new vigilante stories, like, and
Mhm.
that's one thing that we talk about with indie comics all the time is like people are like, oh, let's create new characters and all this stuff, but it's like just take the story that you want to tell and fit it in with Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or whoever, whichever the character is that can sell that story the
Right,
best. That's what they're going to do. If they have a great story, they're not going to put it on new power guy. They're going to put it on, the Flash or somebody that can that's
right.
actually going to sell books.
Yeah, it feels like they've been doing that for a minute, right? Like
Yeah.
even with the Gotham War that just ended, like it starts out, it's basically Bat Family Civil War, like is
Hmm.
how I would describe it, right? But Batman and Catwoman are at odds because Catwoman has trained, like when, first of all, like, well, Batman would sleep for like 8 weeks because of the previous event, right?
Hmm.
So while Batman was out of commission, Catwoman took that opportunity and recruited all the henchmen, all Two Faces men and all Joker's men, whoever, all the henchmen in Gotham, and was like, you know what? I'm gonna teach y'all how to do nonviolent crime. I'm gonna show y'all all how to be cat burglars, and you basically can just steal a little bit from the rich and give to yourselves, and y'all can eat. Everybody eats, be right. And
Hmm.
so when Batman finally comes back to town, he's like, yo, like this is crime. Like just because people aren't getting hurt doesn't mean it's not crime. And we about to take everybody down. And if I gotta take y'all down, y'all being Selena and the rest of the Bat family, because some of them are like, I kind of agree. Violent crime is down. Maybe
Right.
we should be on Catwoman's side. Then, and that's the setup for the war. What's interesting is, like, in my opinion, they don't really address that. They don't come to like a verdict on whether or not they should be tough on all crime. The event just kind of goes off the rails. But I say all that to say it was interesting because when I'm reading it, it was difficult for me, or as I'm reading it, all I'm seeing in my head are like the comments of people who are like, oh yeah, like, well, if Batman wanted to like use his wealth for good, or if Batman really wanted to save Gotham, he'd donate his money and so
Right.
on. So I think that's an example of like people like taking the stuff that's already in their head that people are already saying and then
Hmm.
applying it to these superheroes. Like, do I think Catwoman would suddenly like take in a bunch of Gotham's henchmen and do like, no, I don't think that's
Right.
really in her character. And I certainly don't think the Bat family would agree with it.
Right.
But it's a fine vehicle for that story if you wanted that story to be told.
Yeah. And I'm kind of torn on that because it would be nice to get some of these great stories with, new characters, but who would ever see them? Like who's ever gonna read them? Because they're definitely not putting the money behind promoting
Yeah.
like the new whatever the new character is, unless it's a character that they're trying to get in more things. Like when um dang, I can't remember her name now. Brian Michael Bendis
Hmm.
created her Naomi.
Yep.
When Naomi, they brought Naomi back up. She was in Justice League. She was, she had her new series coming out. She was in all the crossover titles. She fought Black Adam. All
Hmm.
this stuff, and she was everywhere. And you could tell that they were really trying to push her. But that's not something that they do for a lot of characters. That's like you get one at a time. You
Right.
get one at a time that you can
Right.
push with these new stories. And then it might be another 8, 10 months, 3 years before you get another one. So, you know,
Yeah. They fumbled the bag with Naomi so bad.
for sure.
Um, were you with me at Heroes Con? I don't think you were. Uh, not this year, but last year. I was talking to David Walker about Naomi.
Mm,
He was salty. He was not happy about the TV show had like just ended.
I can imagine. Mr. Walker he's got some He's definitely got some opinions.
Right, right. But yeah, they fumbled that show so bad.
Yeah.
Let's see. My man said Dark Knights of Steel is super dope. I do like Dark Knights of Steel by Tom Taylor. I just finished that. The story just wrapped up like 2 months. Raven's favorite Batman story is Death in the Family.
Yeah,
Nice,
yeah,
nice. The death of Jason Todd. I feel you.
yeah, yeah.
Let's see.
Very impactful story.
For sure.
People
I
still
mean,
talk about it.
my favorite of the animated Batman movies is Under the Red Hood.
Oh yeah,
Or is it just called The Red Hood? I can't remember.
yeah. That was a really good one. Like I remember because I hadn't read Death in the Family at that
Right.
point, and I was like, yo, like when he showed up and he was when he was running away from Batman and Robin, and then
Yeah.
he
Cuts
tightens
the
it and cuts the
Yep.
and Batman's like, nah, bro. He's
Right.
like, he's like, nah, this can't be. He
Right.
goes back and he does the detective thing, and he's like, I know exactly who it is. And then you got
Yeah.
yeah, that was a solid one. The animated, they hadn't really missed on like Batman and like especially the animated movies. I can't
And
think of
up in
a bad version.
yeah, no, the Batman animated. I've still not finished The Long Halloween. They did a part 1 and part 2. It's
Mhm.
streaming on HBO Max. I couldn't get with the animation style. I don't like the character designs.
Yeah.
Um, and
The
they've been
the
all of
samurai one was kind of weird too with the animation, but
oh yeah, Batman Ninja.
yeah.
I watched that. I wasn't a big fan of that, but yeah, ever since they like rebooted the DC animated universe, I haven't really been getting with it like that. Like they did the Superman Man of Tomorrow, I think was the first one with that animation style. Green Lantern Beware My Power. I just finished watching.
I like that one. That's the one that was John Stewart.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that one. That with the old boy Hal. That was
yeah,
I like that one. I really did enjoy that one. And it was crazy because at the time for some reason I had to buy it on Amazon before it came on. Is it even on
yes.
HBO Max now?
It's on HBO Max now, but for a long time you could only get it on Amazon.
Yeah, I had to buy it. I was like, what is up? Like they must not want people to watch it. Then I like
Right.
why would they start it on Amazon first? Like
Yeah.
this seems like they're setting up for failure, but I was like, I gotta watch it. It's John Stewart. John Stewart is my guy. John
Yeah.
Stewart stories are some of my favorite stories. So
Yeah.
I had to get it.
John Stewart is my favorite Green Lantern. For the same reason I played with Kareem Campbell on Tony Hawk. But hey, um,
Terrible. Terrible.
but no, you know what's funny? Like John Stewart was Green Lantern on Justice League, so like I didn't
Mhm.
even know like Hal Jordan existed until I started like, reading comics and stuff.
Right.
Um, but what really sold me on John Stewart was there's this old video. It's not even a video. Somebody put it on YouTube, but it's audio of Neil Adams describing the creation of John Stewart and him
Yeah.
going back and forth to Julie Swartz and all the suggestions that were coming down from management. And he's like, no, 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 we're not doing that. And and so it was really like him talking about how he advocated for a black character that was not from the projects or like
Mhm.
a hoodlum or whatever.
Right.
And he had like a respectable job and all these different things. And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. And I think that my favorite part about that story is apparently they wanted his name to be Lincoln Jefferson and not John Stewart. That was the original name. We'll call him Lincoln
Lincoln
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
Right. Or Jefferson Lincoln, one of the two.
Like two president names? Like
Right,
whoa.
right. Well, he
Right.
Lincoln freed the slaves.
Right.
Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence and slept with a slave
Bruh,
a million times. Listen, I don't
these
think we knew about Sally Heming at the time.
these editors and stuff, bruh. It's crazy. Like the more I've been hearing stories, now that I now that I have, friends who are working, for these different companies and writing these different characters,
Mhm.
the stuff that the editors, and I understand like they have a job to do and they, you want to sell books and everything, but it's like, yo, y'all don't have original ideas at all. Like y'all just want to, I want to use the system the way that it is to make, you know, to get your ideas out there. And it's like, bro,
Yeah.
um,
It's an interesting spot. I want to interview a comic editor because I don't envy that job, right? Like,
mhm,
as an editor, ultimately, your job is to make sure books get out on time,
mhm,
right?
right,
So, you're working with that, like you're trying to manage tasks and manage personalities and stuff. And like, all right, I got 8 pages of script. Let's make sure this artist got it, whatever, whatever. So you're managing that, you're correcting art mistakes and story continuity errors. And then you also have to take whatever story you're being given and
mhm,
make sure it fits in Batman's case, 86 years or whatever it is
right,
of history to be like, oh no, his name's not Jim, it's Jason or whatever. And you got to do all that. And if the book ain't selling, like they're looking at you as well as the writers and artists. You got to be the one to decide, all right, I got to pull the plug on this dude or this idea or whatever.
yeah,
So I don't envy that job. But like as a reader, it is so easy to be like, yo, these editors must not know what they're doing because these stories are dull.
yeah.
But I'm
No,
like, I
I
don't know.
think your guy Marquise would definitely do an interview. Marquise Draper.
Right, right. He is
Um,
editing a lot of,
yeah, he's editing a lot of DC stuff now. I'm seeing his name pop up on a lot of stuff. So
yeah,
and I know he's accessible. So that might be one to reach out to for sure.
I may do that.
Especially
I'm
with your milestone connections.
don't do that. Don't do that. But he said Pepsi plug. Listen, if Pepsi wants to sponsor the Hangout, they absolutely can.
I noticed you turned it just the right way where you
I
started.
didn't I didn't realize. But join the Pepsi generation.
There we
Is that still a
go.
thing?
There we
Um, but nah, yeah, like I in talking to we both have friends that are at DC,
go.
and in
Mhm.
talking to some of them, I'm like, I hear the gripes. Like I wanted to do this, but editorial was like, nah. Um, but I'm like, there's got to be another side to it. So I'm curious to hear how that goes for them, how that job goes for them. But
Yeah, because on top of that, you got to like they know from what I understand, they hear more about like the connective tissue
mhm,
of the stories, even the stuff that's coming out or that's planning to be coming out, and the
right,
writers might not know any of that stuff. Like they just might be focusing on their one story, and they don't necessarily know that 4 months from now, there's going to be a new Green Lantern who what I'm saying, like they don't know
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Like that was a complaint Jeff Thorne had. We were talking about. Well, he was talking about it on a different. I think it was on his Patreon. He was
Mhm,
just telling the story of his Green Lantern run and how he had originally pitched it as like a 3-year run.
mhm.
And what we ended up getting was basically just the first chapter of it.
Oh wow.
And he just kind of dropped the story with Act One, and they gave him that Emerald Knight one shot to kind of try to wrap things up in a nice bow and put the toys back in the box. But the story was never meant to be that short. So there's a lot of things that like don't really make sense. And oh well, and it's just on the next writer to do it because they did the whole Dawn of DC initiative and didn't want to be continuing stuff. So
Yeah, it's really a shame. Like we were talking to Daryl Banks a
mhm,
while back, even like back in the day. Some of his Green Lantern stories are like the most like iconic Green Lantern stories at this point.
mhm,
And like he was like they were making up stuff, but they weren't. They didn't really have the direction to
mhm,
do it. They were just like we got ideas for stuff, and then they would pitch it, and they would have to redo stuff because it wasn't fitting,
right.
or they would make something that they thought was a good idea. But it's that's the whole system. That's how you get from one place in a company to now 80 years of comic books. You got to go through those growing pains and stuff. So, but it seems like they would have learned from past mistakes. But whatever.
You would think, but and then there's not even just the comic book continuity you got to juggle with, right? But it's
Mhm.
like, oh well, John Stewart can't be the Green Lantern in comics because Hal Jordan's the Green Lantern in the movie.
Right.
We got to have synergy between all these different markets, like vertical markets. So it's interesting.
I feel like they're gonna jump over John Stewart in the movies and go to Sojourner or somebody
I
like
could, I mean, it makes sense for them to do that just because the DC universe in general has been super white,
yeah.
right? Like, so if they want to capitalize on some of the same stuff Marvel's been taking advantage of, I mean, Marvel's got Shuri, Ironheart,
Yeah.
and Monica Rambeau,
Like Rambo.
all with very prominent roles. And then,
Yeah.
not to mention America, or yeah, the
Chavez.
new Captain Marvel, America Chavez. Is that her name?
Oh no, that's America Chavez is the one that was in Doctor Strange. You're talking about Kamala Khan.
The fact that they have both of those in
Yeah.
the MCU is crazy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so Marvel's got the diversity thing, and DC has been trying to paint themselves as like, the pioneer in diversity, which is interesting.
I feel like
So
in the comics though, they're about equal though. Like in the comics, they're about equal, but I don't maybe not because I think Marvel has got definitely like the higher profile diverse characters right now. Like Miles Morales is like
mhm,
killing the game.
yeah,
He's got like two of the best movies that have ever been created.
right.
And then I mean they did try to make somebody was just talking about I Am Batman. They
Hmm.
had Jace Fox for a minute. They had Jace Fox for a minute, and it was like y'all knew this. Y'all knew they weren't gonna. Y'all knew they
Listen,
weren't gonna let that happen. But
listen. I mean, it doesn't make sense to try to have a black Batman. Like, to me, like, Bruce Wayne is too entrenched in pop culture.
yeah,
Like, Spider-Man, there. I guess Miles just took advantage of a nice little window.
yeah,
And I think it worked because the Miles movies were animated. So it didn't feel like it was, encroaching on Peter Parker's territory.
yeah.
But I tell you what,
That makes sense.
Miles
I
is
didn't thought about it like
killing. Miles is killing the merchandise game.
bruh, I'm
Like,
telling you, the kids do not care about Peter. They
at
do not care.
all.
They want Miles and Gwen. Miles and
Yeah.
Gwen are destroying toys and merch right now, bruh.
Yeah.
Like I was
Halloween
telling,
costumes.
yes, yes.
That's all I saw.
Miles and Jordans, like these
Yeah.
kids, these kids. My son, my son DJ, like
Yeah.
we went down to a show down in Greensboro this past
Mhm.
weekend, and I was like, oh, there's gonna be a cosplay competition. The first thing that he did was make the little spider emblem, and it
Yeah.
was Miles's spider emblem,
Yeah.
black. He already had the Jordans. He was like, hey, you know what I'm doing. I was like,
Right.
you can't make Ace Blade, like you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that for Ace Blade, but
Put Ace
they
Blade in some Jordans, it might work out.
I know. But they killing the game right now. And I don't know. I think you're right about that because if they would have tried to put Miles in the movies, it might not have worked. The live action movies, it might not have worked out that way. But it was just this right time for the Ultimate Spider-Man, and then
Mhm.
he just started gaining popularity, and
Yeah.
um, still is like it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Right. So Steven says Static could definitely be DC's Miles Morales.
If they would only
I so I don't have any kind of insider information, but I think
usually when somebody says that.
no, I don't at all. I have to preface my statements because people assume I have knowledge and I don't.
We know.
I
Okay, all
I
right.
I read a lot. I read like I'm looking here, right?
The text messages that you get.
Yeah, nah, I don't get text messages about media stuff. I get text messages sometimes about comic stuff, but even that is coming to an end because the static run is coming to an end.
Hmm.
But so, like, for example, right, I read the indicia in these books, right? So Milestone 30th anniversary special. It's published by DC Comics, but it's copyright Milestone Media.
Mm.
If I'm DC Comics and I only partially own Milestone or whatever film rights to Milestone, and I got
Yeah.
to pay out a certain percentage of profits because of whatever the terms of that deal were. And this is all hypothesis. I don't know the terms of the deal, but I can look and see that it ain't completely owned by DC. Why would I do that before I put out the Sojourner movie when I own
Right.
Sojourner completely?
Right. Yeah.
You
That's
know?
the whole thing. That's been the issue since Black Lightning, right? Like they, they were like, hey, why would I pay you to use Black Lightning when I can just make Black Vulcan and
Hmm.
and Juice, and I can make all these other characters
Yeah.
that do the same thing, but I own the whole thing.
Right.
And I think that's where like Marvel has it over, DC, especially because they know Spider-Man is popular, but Sony's not giving up Spider-Man.
Right.
So but they're still gonna make Spider-Man content because he's he's top three.
And because they own the merchandise rights,
Oh,
right?
do they?
Like Marvel still owns the merchandising rights to Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
Sony just gets the movies.
Oh.
So Sony will get all the movie revenue, and in under their new deal, Disney pays for the movies to be made.
Hmm.
Sony gets all the money from the movie, all the proceeds. So it's basically free to Sony to put
Man,
out this Spider-Man content.
hey, I need
But
that kind of deal.
right, but Disney still eats
Yeah.
because they get to keep Spider-Man in the MCU
Hmm.
and they get all that merchandise revenue.
The merchandising is. I
And
would
that's in my opinion, that's more valuable than the movie.
I would love to see those numbers, but I can imagine it's crazy.
Bro, they got miles on everything out here. Go to Target, go to any Target in America, and it's Miles and Gwen, like you
Yeah.
said, and Black Panther, ironically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with DC, again, I don't know what the terms of their deal is with Milestone, but I do know that the Milestone founders were smart from the beginning and did have full ownership of their characters.
Hmm.
And DC initially only had licensing rights to print the books, right? I think there was some deal made around the time like 2009 or so to bring Static into the DC universe and the other Milestone characters. So I
Hmm.
believe DC has some sort of co-ownership in those characters, but that deal is like there's no I could not find anything about it. So that means there's nothing public because I can research stuff very well.
Right.
But uh my speculation is that DC co-owns those characters. As a matter of fact, I don't have to speculate because Dennis Cowan said that DC co-owned those characters. So I don't know. I don't it's not as lucrative. And on top of all that, unless you're leading with Static, the Milestone universe really isn't like
Yeah.
top of mind for people to like be like, oh, there's an Icon movie coming. Bet
Right.
I'm gonna be there. Like be like, who's Icon?
Right. I
But you
think
can do Black Superman because like it's Black Superman.
yeah, Valzada would definitely get a movie before Icon.
Yeah,
But I think Static and Rocket especially would be the two. Um,
it makes
but
the most sense.
yeah, it makes the most sense. But like you said, the contracts are not gonna be beneficial for DC, who would be doing the heavy lifting. So
But
um,
the other thing is the stories that they don't. There's not a lot of content out there, right? Like I think with Static, you have the TV show, and people at least remember that there was a comic. For a
yeah,
lot of the other people, like those books barely existed, you know? So, I mean, Icon ran longer than Static did, but well, no, Icon got 42 issues, Static got 45.
yeah,
So, yeah, Static is the long did end up with the longest run out of all of them.
I'm still looking for that Static 45 also.
You're gonna be looking, or you can be paying 300. It's one of the two. Like, I think I
Don't be
paid
looking,
200.
man.
I paid 200 for mine, and that was a deal. The
Yeah.
dude wanted 300. I put in a best offer for 200, and he accepted it. I did
Mm.
not think so. I think he was going to. You're right. It was hardware to have 50.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Haven't they tried to make a live action Static? There's been a live action Static movie in development since like 20. Who knows, right?
A long time.
There's been rumblings like since like 2013. but they announced what 2 years ago that Michael B. Jordan's production company has signed on to
Mm,
produce it. There were rumors about castings. I don't think there's ever actually been a cast. Last I heard, they hadn't even written a script.
all right.
So I don't know. And I say last I heard, last I saw on an interview. I have to clarify that. Um, because I ain't hear nothing from nobody. But yeah, I think the Static movie will happen eventually, but I don't think it's like anywhere close to, right now.
Yeah.
And who knows? James Gunn could be like, oh, Static's in phase two. Somebody
Mm,
did tweet at James Gunn and he said that he planned to include Static in the new DCEU, but who
yeah.
knows?
I mean, but really, if it's a choice of like being C tier DC characters, Static would be right there with everybody else. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's not, the big three and you know the really A-list characters, if it's not the main, seven
Mhm.
Justice Leaguers, then I think Static is right there below like Lobo and you
Yeah.
know
I think Static would have been I would have put Static above Blue Beetle. I
yeah.
would I would imagine Static had more public consciousness than Blue Beetle did.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Blue Beetle, that movie was very good. I enjoyed it. I know some people didn't like it, but me and DJ went and saw it, and
Mhm.
we laughed and cheered all the way through the movie. Um, I enjoyed it. They can definitely do it, but
Mhm.
we'll see.
I haven't seen it. Is it on HBO Max yet?
It should be. I feel like it came out 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, who knows? Steven said, I love hanging out here. I heard people want the kid from Stranger Things to play Static. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
they keep waiting. He gonna be too old.
He's probably too old now.
Listen, listen.
He
The
got
way
that deep
black
voice now.
teenagers bulk up, like black kids will be 14 and look 30. Like,
Legit, legit.
unless you're Jaden Smith, and I don't want Jaden Smith playing Static. But
Listen, he about the only one with the star power to do it.
listen,
I bet you people would come see the movie though.
they, maybe, maybe. Is Jada playing his mom? Then they'll come.
They get Jada in there as some other bang baby. Bring her back as Fish from the Arkham series. What was her name? Fish Mooney. Bring her
Right.
back as Fish Mooney from the Arkham series. You know, they'll figure it out.
I forgot she was in that show. If I'm not mistaken, I think in the past there were creator studio differences in terms of casting, but I may be wrong. I don't know. As far as I've seen, there has been a cover page to a script. That's all that we have seen of that Static movie, besides announcements. Even during the DC fandom, they were like, "Oh, there's gonna be a Milestone animated movie." That was like 2 fandoms ago.
It really was like, and I was excited
Everything else,
about that.
yeah, everything else they announced at that fandom has come and gone. All the movies, the Super Sons movie that they announced the year later, that's already come and gone. But that Milestone movie, hey, it's
Yeah,
not. I've not heard anything else about it. Like, and I've heard there are people working on it, like
yeah,
working on. But the stuff that I've heard they're working on, like again, I've seen this in interviews. It was like they were working on a script. I'm like, bro, how do you announce a movie before you even start a script?
right. Anywhere from who is this? Anywhere from
Oh
Nick?
yeah. Steven says, anywhere from Nick if he will get to write more of that short story of Batman Beyond the Static. I've not heard, I've not asked about that.
Nick
But if
who?
you go on Nick's Twitter, it appears that he is trying to stay far away from Big Two comics for the foreseeable future.
Be like that. I think Batman Beyond will definitely Terry McGinnis will get a resurgence before Static. I think.
Terry McGinnis, that would be a dope animated movie too. Like you could do Terry McGinnis like you did the Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
Like I'd
yeah.
watch that. And it's
I
kind
would.
of the only thing that makes sense because you can't bring the live action universe that far into the future without trying to like establish some continuity that it's going to lead to. So it makes the most sense to have that like off to the side. Unless you're just doing Elseworlds, which they did say there were going to be DC Elseworld stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Temple says, "What's good?" Yeah, we are so off topic. So because we are here to
We got
talk
the Batman Beyond. We was
right. We're here to talk about my Bat-tober reading. But before we do that, my man Danny is here. And you know when Danny's, I shouldn't say this like this, but if Danny's here, it's got to be for a reason, right?
You already know. You already know. Come on now.
So here we are. We are here. We are knee deep in the campaign for Ace Blade issue number 7. I'm a backer. I pledged 18. We've gotten to the point in these Kickstarters where like I can't even really pledge a whole lot like I would want to because
you
I
have
already bought everything.
You literally have everything. Yeah, that's one of the tough parts about it, man. It's like the people who, have supported Ace Blade have all the Ace Blade stuff. So that's one of the things that I didn't foresee as like a hurdle as we get along. But like you see, we got 116 backers.
Yeah.
And most of them are people who've backed before. So they're only getting either the comic book, maybe a variant cover, maybe whatever.
Yeah.
So, we try to do new stuff to bring, to give, returning backers incentives to do the higher pledges. But, really we just want to, keep making comic books. So if you get the comic book, I'm happy with that.
Right.
Listen, if you bought Ace Blade 1 through 6 and you want to buy Ace Blade number 7, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but
sure.
it's really about getting the new folks in, getting new pledgers in who might want to get all 6 comic books or who might want to get a t-shirt or a hat or something like that. So, that's one of the things.
Oh,
Hey,
I'm tripping. I thought I could do that and it just be playing muted while you were talking, and I forgot that it was playing on my computer. But,
no, this so man, it's been such a fun ride, making comic books, man. I love it, I enjoy it, and all that, but it's definitely the marketing side is definitely a struggle sometimes, I'll say.
yeah, I feel it. It's difficult. Like with comics, you deal with the law of diminishing returns, right? And people complain a lot about superhero comics specifically. Let me take this off screen for a second. Oh, that's not the right button to do that. But with superhero comics, people complain a lot about things like resetting to the status quo too often or whatever. But it's like if you don't, then you don't get new readers. And if you don't have new customers, your business is going to die. Right. So that's the difficult part about serialized storytelling, right? Like if I see that we're on issue 7 of Ace Blade, unless you give that to me the right way, I'm gonna be like, oh, I already missed out. 6 issues too late.
That's right where we are too. Like when we were at when we were at 5, which was villain season, like people were like, oh, I can still get it from the beginning. But like issue 6, issue 7, they're like, oh, it's already
it's a wrap.
I've already missed important stuff. I can't.
Right. I missed this too much. I can't binge.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we're 75% of the way. We're 74% of the way to the goal. And for those who don't know who Ace Blade is, the Vegas vigilante, why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So my man Terrell Durham, he was the best fighter in the world, or so he thought, and found out that the lifestyle that he loved was corrupted by people who were taking bribes and cheating their way to the top.
Okay.
And he just wants to prove that he's the best fighter in the world. So he started on this quest to uncover, the man or woman behind the corruption in the fight industry. And it led to people with superpowers and people with billions of dollars in the bank, corrupting the whole system. So if he was Bruce Wayne and he had $1 billion, he might be able to fight that back. But all he's got is his 2 hands and some sharp blades. So it's a little bit tougher for him.
Right.
And then in Ace Blade number 7, this is book 2 of the Cash Rules Everything Around Me arc. And this one, he finds out that it's not just the prison system that is corrupted by money. It's the politicians, the press, and the police too. So how's he supposed to fight all that? It's one of those um, situations that he can't win, and then somebody that he cares about is also gets caught up in the crossfire. So,
Word.
um, it's a continuation of, you know, it's kind of right after villain season, this arc.
Hmm.
We're introducing some new characters. We're kind of expanding out from just the main villains,
Hmm.
Gutshot and Blackjack, and introducing some people that are going to have some lasting effects in the story for sure.
Bad. That's what's up. My man Steven says Ace Blade is a cold series, man. I'm loving every issue. Got hooked from BJ's first video about it.
That's why I show up. That's why I show up, man. On the Hangout, I'll be like, "Hey, man, let me get on video. I don't want to just be in the comments. Let me get on the video sometime."
Listen, man. If there's one thing I'm proud of is that the squad will ride.
For
Like
sure.
I think it's a really weird world that we live in with like influencers and
Mm,
clout chasing and stuff like that. But I feel like our community is just a solid community of fans. Like we're
yeah,
fans of comics first. So it's not like we're not backing Ace Blade because it's like, oh, there's gonna be an Ace Blade movie
right.
3 years from now, and then I'm gonna sell this for $1,000.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, like, we just wanna read good stories. And if Ace Blade is anything, it's a good story.
And I appreciate that, man. Like I just made a TikTok about that the other day. I was like, listen, if your goal, I appreciate everybody who supports Ace Blade. I don't listen. I don't care if you buy it for your uncle.
Right.
If you're planning on flipping it, in the future, or if you're sitting, you want to read it. I
Hmm.
don't care what your intent is, but I did make a video cautioning people. I was like, if your goal is to flip this, down the line when Ace Blade gets a movie, like statistics say that it's not likely. Statistically, it's not likely to happen.
Right.
But if it does happen, like right now is the best time to get these books. Like before we get national distribution, like you want to get the early super rare copies. But
Right. Right.
um, I wouldn't advise spending your life savings trying to get as much. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna advise it, but
I won't advise against it,
I'm not gonna
but
advise against it. But I can't tell you, hey, spend your life savings getting the,
yeah.
the newest Ace Blade because you think it's gonna pay off,
Word.
20 years down the line. I mean, it might though. We never know.
Word. Word. I feel kind of bad. I just thought about this. Like, so in the moment, I feel bad. All right. Maybe
Mhm.
not that bad. JG says, I'm new to Ace Blade. But I
Oh,
just realized, like, we're already at issue 7. So for those who don't know, Danny and we had this whole thing at least a year ago, right?
mhm.
Where I bought this iPad and I was like, you know what? I need an Apple Pencil. And so during the last Kickstarter run, Danny was like, yo, let me like pay for some promotion on the show or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about paying for promotion. But I do want to get back into drawing and all that. Just
Mhm.
grab me this Apple Pencil. And my man Danny and Morgan, shout out to my man Morgan, writer of Lumberjacks, creator of Lumberjacks.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, Danny and Morgan bought me this Apple Pencil so I could, get my art skills up. And Danny was like, "Yo, we might need you to do a variant cover for issue." Uh, at the time, it was issue 5. I
Yeah.
want to say
I was trying to get you on issue 6 because that was the
issue
first
6,
one. That was the first one that I did a variant cover for.
right? And I was like, "Nah, man, I might have enough skills by the time issue 7 rolls around, but definitely not issue 6." And here we are at issue 7. Y'all ask me how many pictures I've drawn with these Apple Pencils.
Hey
I got
man, it's tough. It's tough, bro. It's tough to find time to draw and practice.
I got my
Yeah.
Procreate up right now. Let's do this.
Mhm.
Got my Procreate up. There are exactly what's
You
that,
got two
12?
rows. You got 2 rows. That's good.
Listen, oh wait, nah, one of these doesn't count. One of these is like a little logo concept I was doing for my wife.
Uh-huh.
And then another is this is the default page that Squeak draws on.
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, this is when you want to play with the iPad, you play with that. I do have this. Oh, you're not gonna. What can I turn the brightness down? How are we gonna do this? I have this static that I started.
There we go.
The problem is I'm great at starting artwork. I'm not great at finishing it.
Aren't we all, man? That's the it gets bad when you like I did this I gotten into coloring like real heavy, especially on the iPad, because like you can do everything that you can do on Photoshop, you can do on the iPad and Procreate.
Right.
And I got into coloring, man, and I started like I was doing flats. I did some flats on Ballad of the Black Rose, but like the detail that you can get into, like if you just sit there for hours and hours, like I couldn't find a stopping point. And then like at some point I would cross like the boundary of, okay, this is good enough, to now I think this is terrible. Like I put too much time into this for it to still not look good.
Right.
So I would just quit. I would be like, hey, I'll leave it alone.
I was watching I don't know who I was listening to. I don't know. I was listening to some comic artist doing a podcast or something. And they were talking about how like their average is like it was Ryan Benjamin. He was like, yeah, on average, I'm like 5 to 8 hours a page. And I'm like, you know what? I'm never gonna sit down for 8 hours looking at the same drawing. No. Maybe art just ain't for me.
That's a full day's work, man. It's like
exactly.
There we go. There's the concept.
There's the concept I did for issue 6. And that's as far as it's gotten. Listen, is Cash Rules? Is that going to be a 2-issue story arc? Are we doing a brand new story arc for issue 8?
No, it's going to be Cash Rules everything around me. It's five books, 5 issues for the second arc. So the first arc was Vigilante Complex. Then we had Villain Season, which was issue 5. Which is one shot with all the villains. And then Cash Rules everything around me will be 5 issues.
Bet. So, yeah, we'll get me in for issue 9 or something.
There we go. Well, we can get Squeak in for issue 9. She been practicing.
You know what? My oldest daughter, who we've still not come up with a nickname for her. We had one. She don't like it. So I'll call her Boogie for now, because I only use my kids' real names on the internet. But she could probably do a variant.
Yeah.
She's mixed media, paper mache, anything. She's great. But anyway, so the Vegas Vigilante, Ace Blade, issue 7, Cash Rules, Everything Around Me, part 2. The Kickstarter ends in 10 days. We're 75% of the way to the goal. We're trying to raise, is it 6,000 this time around? 5,500.
500, yeah. We're in that stuck zone. Like every Kickstarter, there's like we get a build up in the beginning, then it like goes flat for a couple of days, and then it ramps up, with the last 7 to 10 days or whatever. So we got NC Comic Con this weekend, so we're hoping to spread the word about it. I'm out there. So you're gonna be at NC Comic Con, right?
I will be at NC Comic Con. I got my tickets right here.
Yeah. Who you looking forward to seeing?
My man, my homies at BQuest Studios. And then
they're gonna be there.
I'm trying to get there. My man Steven said it should be Pip and Squeak.
Squeak.
But yeah, man, I'm trying to see Afua Richardson before Morgan does.
Hey, good luck.
Because Morgan might run her away from the entire con.
I might not even see Morgan this weekend. Shoot, who knows?
Right. My beautiful Nubian Black Queen. I'm so sorry that you've had to endure the hardships of the world.
You have no clue how much we be going at Morgan in the text groups, man. It's hilarious. Like every time we see, it's not just him though. It's not just him.
Yeah,
it's not just him. So like we'll screenshot his comment. Like anytime we run by his comments, on her posts, we screenshot them and send them directly to the group. Like you do know how this looks, right?
Yo. Listen, I was reading Lumberjacks #1 yesterday, actually.
Mm,
And it's funny because I read it initially when I first met y'all. And
mm.
the Kickstarter was going on, and I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, it's kind of wordy, but it's straight. It's cool. I like it.
It's very wordy.
It was yes. On second read, it felt even more wordy, but but issue 2 is a lot better.
Yeah.
But what was hilarious though was like Lumberjacks just sounds like Morgan.
He is. Yeah,
Like
his voice is Morgan.
it is just Morgan, and so I'm just reading this book. I'm like, bro, this is just Morgan talking.
He found Lumberjack's voice early, and it just happened to sound a lot like him.
A lot like him.
His loquaciousness, like that was definitely something that we had to work on for Lumberjacks. Like, because I'd lettered all the Lumberjacks books so far.
Yeah.
And even I was like, yo, bro, how am I gonna fit this all in here? Like, and it wasn't like each issue 1 was worse than it is, in the final print.
Yeah.
Too. So like that was the first thing that we worked on. And then the second issue, like you said, it's so much better in the second issue, and then the third issue is way better. And now we got Brian J. Lambert editing, Lumberjacks. So, that's one thing about indie comics. Like you learn as you go,
Yeah.
I told him the same. I went back and relettered Ace Blade number 1 and 2 like 3 times. So
yeah.
Just because this stuff, like I went back and was like, oh, this stuff bothers me so much now that I know better.
Yeah.
So
I think it's easier to pick up on it when you're lettering your own books.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, Morgan's just dropping off a script, and it's like, he gets back a comic book, so it's a little bit different when you got to type in all those bubbles and you got to fit it in. Hey, listen, bro, if you want to keep your face, it would behoove you, but yeah. So anyway, Ace Blade issue 7, Cash Rules. The Kickstarter is live now. I had to shout out the homies. You can go to fourthwallpros.com. I haven't made the, you know what? Let me do it right now. No, I got to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this custom link.
I should have sent you over that, man. It's crazy because like the normal marketing stuff that I do, I did the press kit, I did the pre-launch page, and I did all the normal stuff that I normally do. And then I just started like scheduling podcasts with people, all the normal stuff that I do. But now I got this huge like TikTok thing, but because TikTok is pushing, the TikTok shop, they're
links.
Super suppress anything else like any other content. Like I was just looking through my content for the past 3 weeks, and it's like everything that isn't involving my actual TikTok shop has got like less than 1,000 views, across the board. And then anything that I'm doing where I'm promoting a TikTok shop or trying to sell something on that platform just does so much better, like 2-3 times better. And it's like they know that we can see these things and they just don't care. So it's one of them tough things, man. I thought that I was going to be able to rely on on that platform, because I've been working on it. I've been working to build it to where people who know about Ace Blade on there, people who want to support Ace Blade on there, but they won't. Now they can't even see the stuff. They won't even show them the stuff that says, yo, go to Kickstarter. Anything that I put on there that says, hey, go to Kickstarter, they're not going to show it to them. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah. It's an interesting world, I would say.
Yeah. I need that. I need Brandon, the marketing expert. That's what I need to. I need to get on your other YouTube page, marketing with Brandon. That's the show that I really need to be on.
I got to make that happen. So how do I do this? I got to delete this first.
You trying to make a custom link? I can send you one.
I have a custom link. The issue is that I have a bjkicks.link/aceblade already, and it's not letting me just change the destination on that one. I had to delete it and create another one. But now it's there. So if you go to bjkicks.link/aceblade, you will be directed to this Kickstarter. And my man, before we transition into the next part of the show, the main event, my man Steven says, what do you guys think of this comic I'm writing? It's about superhumans who are normal, but they discovered that different genres of music can enhance humans and give them different abilities.
Hmm.
That's interesting, right? So the the most the best comparison I have that comes to mind for that, right, is Murder Falcon. If you've read Murder Falcon by Daniel Warren Johnson, he like basically they use the power of music to sort of summon these avatars that
Mhm.
fight against like the forces of evil or whatever. So, but it's all heavy metal.
Mm.
And not to spoil the finale, but I'm about to spoil the finale. There's a point where like I'll just say it like this. There's a point where a bunch of different types of musicians come together and it helps them defeat evil. But uh, I didn't spoil anything that you know, that's
I
essential to
think
that book.
I think something like that would be dope with an actual soundtrack. Like I think there's a couple of indie artists, Mason Parker being one,
Mhm.
who have inserted music into their comic books. Like his paperback hero saga. The story is a normal story up until you know I think the character is listening to something as he trains,
Yeah.
and there's a 2 or 3 pages where he's training and he's listening to this music, and there's a QR code that you can scan and listen to, the same music that he's listening to while he's training, and something like that would be cool for like the superhumans. Like you can hear the music that gives them their powers. Like you could have a integrated soundtrack with that, or something like that. That might be a very interesting idea. I know that would be a heavy lift. That would be tough to do, especially if you're not a musical person. But
Yeah.
there's enough musicians out here that could definitely make something like that, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a brother that makes beats or something, maybe you could do that. But
If only it was that easy, because
oh,
believe me, I've been asking,
your man be taxing. Um,
especially now that
so
he's working with the NBA.
oh word, that's dope.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is We Live. We Live by the Miranda brothers
Mm,
with Eva Dela Cruz and Dave Sharp. Can't even lie. I've not read. I think I tried to read the first issue. This book has a soundtrack that goes with it. So
mm,
as you're turning the pages, it got this QR code. You scan it and you're listening to the songs on Spotify.
mm.
I found that it took me out of the story.
Oh,
And I
really?
think it's just because it's a genre that I wasn't super familiar. Like this is like a super like kind of sci-fi story. It's like
Hmm.
they're finding these monsters and they're in like this super colorful kind of fantastical world. And all that on top of the fact that like the soundtrack was kind of like electronic, like synthwave type stuff. Like it was just too much outside of my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
never read the book or listened to the music. So I'm a now I'm gonna go back and like try to just read this without the soundtrack and
Hmm.
then read it with the soundtrack. Um,
Yeah, I've tried to do stuff like that before. Like we did. So TikTok doesn't allow like digital sales, of course. But what I
mhm.
did was that I made videos with like me reading each page of the comic book,
Uh-huh.
and set it up as a series where people could buy it, for the digital price.
Mhm.
And some people liked it, some people didn't, but it's just a different way to kind of experience the story, you
Yeah.
know. And if you're not used to it, like if you like to sit, like I like to actually sit and read. I think we had a conversation before. I'm actually getting into digital books now, whereas like
Yeah.
I used to be like a super. I need to feel the paper in my hand guy.
Mhm.
I'm actually reading more digital books now, but it's just a different experience. If you're not used to that experience, it can kind of really, like you said, take you out of the story.
Yeah.
If it's not super cohesive, like if it's not
Mhm.
like the whole thing is happening at the same time on the
Yeah.
same, you know what I'm saying? It can definitely take you out of the story.
Yeah. Like something like that hip hop family tree book, that would
Mm,
be perfect for like and I think part of it though is hip hop, especially 80s and 70s, 80s hip hop is built on break beats. So
mhm.
you can throw in hip hop beats without putting in lyrics, and now all of a sudden it just feels like it's 1982 or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's difficult with some of the newer stuff. Like if I was doing, you know, a beat or a book set in Atlanta today, right? Now I gotta like throw like some Migos or something in there, and Migos don't hit the same when it's just the beats. Like you need the ad libs and stuff too.
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
throw too much of that out there, like now I'm like I'm listening to the beat. I'm not reading the book.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I go back and forth about physical versus digital. But I'm gonna get this back on topic, right? So I appreciate you guys sticking through the first hour of the show, and I know that you guys came here to hear the results of my Battober reading. So
Mm.
here I am, right? It's me, and I wouldn't be me if I didn't have some stupid ambitious goal to start the month, right? So October comes. Actually, this is like last week of September, and I'm like, all right, everybody's gonna be doing like spooky month or whatever. Everybody's gonna be doing their horror comics and all that. I don't really read horror comics like that. What am I gonna do for October? Oh wait, it's Battober. Battober is a drawing challenge. It's not really anything else. But I'll just do a whole bunch of Batman for Battober. I'll do a couple reviews every week. There's plenty of Batman stories that either I've read or haven't read, but I got plenty of time to read them and, do my thoughts on them and all that. Cool. I write out my calendar. I'll take a picture and share it. I'll share it in the Discord and on Facebook so y'all can see what I was supposed to talk to y'all about all month. But let's just say I was supposed to do eight Battober reviews and then a big finale. I was going to do Batman Damned on Halloween.
Mm.
And I read just about every story that I wrote down because some of them I had already read before. But all
That's
the new
good.
stuff that I was going to read, I read it. But in order for me to make videos, I would have had to read it, write my thoughts, outline a video, take all my screenshots, record my thoughts, edit the videos, and put them out twice a week on top of the pull list video that I do every Monday.
Mm.
And I quickly realized this is a futile effort. We had a
Right.
church conference 2 weeks ago. There was no way I was doing any of that. I was tripping.
I mean, if you didn't need to sleep or eat for the whole month, you may have been able to do it.
I might have been able to do it. But look, I read all the Batman, so I'm just going to tell you guys what I thought about a lot of these stories. I'm going to save my in-depth. I'm going to give you all the real, but I will eventually do videos breaking out each of these stories. They just won't be in October, and that'll be fine. Temple says, shouldn't Batman The Long Halloween be the big final Halloween review? So my idea, yes, Long Halloween could. I think I've reviewed The Long Halloween before. Oh, you know what? We did a book club on The Long Halloween. That's what we did inside the K Squad. But my idea was I wanted to do like the creepiest Batman story, and that's why Batman Damned was the Halloween finale. Also because I hadn't read it, and I felt like The Long Halloween could be a little bit played out because everybody was going to do it on Halloween. I'll do it like on Christmas or something. But yeah. So what was I going to say? So I read a bunch of Batman. Specifically, I read. All right. So I read. Oh yeah, I read Black Mirror. I had already read Black Mirror. What I read that was new to me. I read Batman White Knight.
Right
I
now,
had
you
never
were
read
mentioning
that.
that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. I read Robin and Batman by Jeff Lemire. I read, believe it or not, I had never read The Dark Knight Returns before. And I didn't finish it, actually. I read issue 1 and said I was going to pick it back up later and didn't. So I still got 3 issues of The Dark Knight Returns left to read. I read, there's a book by Paul Dini. It's called Dark Knight. What is it? Dark Knight, A True Batman Story. That was really good. I said White Knight already. What else is on this calendar? I think that's all the new stuff I read. The other reviews I was going to do was like for year 1, Batman Universe, which was one I read a little while back. Ego. I was going to do a video about Black Mirror, and I was going to do a video about The Long Halloween as well. But the new stuff that I read, the stuff that I felt was really, really good. Oh, that's the one. I forgot. Let me grab it.
Man, that's a lot of reading. That's a lot of reading though.
Yeah, I told you I was reading a lot.
That's good though. I would have tried to sit down and play some of the video games though, because I think like the Arkham, like I didn't play that Gotham Knights video game, but I heard some good and some bad things about it.
Right.
But I didn't know if it was based off of any of the comics or anything.
I know they did a comic adaptation of it because there's an omnibus of the Arkham saga,
Hmm.
and Peter Tomasi wrote it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I don't know if the Arkham games are actually based on anything. Paul Dini wrote at least the first Batman game. I only know that because I literally was just playing it
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago.
The what
During
one? The
Bat-Tober.
Arkham Asylum one, or
I think Arkham Asylum is the first one where they're. I was gonna say where they're in the asylum. Yes, that one. Paul Dini wrote that one.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know either until I started reading, started playing it. And, as you're walking down the halls for
Hmm.
that first
Credits,
level, the
credits
credits
roll.
are rolling, and it's written by Paul Dini.
I think I that's you know what? I think I may have played it before I even knew who Paul Dini was, which is
Word.
probably why I didn't realize that. Like, but that
That's
was a solid story. That makes sense.
yeah, no, it was definitely it was dope.
Yeah.
So I've only gotten to like the second level. I can't get past. Oh wait, no, I did. I finally got past. When you get to that part with Zaz, and you got to like go from gargoyle to gargoyle
Oh
and
yeah,
kill the henchmen and stuff. I finally did that and made it out of the asylum, and I got to
that
like
was a
find
tough part. Like
Batmobiles.
that was a tough tutorial though. Like to I
Right.
remember being stuck on that part too, as a matter of fact. And but that game, like, was one of the like one of those games. I want to say, was that the PS4 that came out on?
I think
And
so.
I was like, I was obsessed with that game. It was one of those games I was like, I'm gonna get 100%, but I couldn't get all the
Uh,
Riddler tools or whatever. But that was a good one. Either
all right.
way, I gotta get out of here, man. But I
Okay.
do appreciate you, man. I
No
appreciate y'all,
problem.
and
No problem.
I'm gonna definitely catch the rest of the list on the replay.
Bet. I appreciate it.
All right, now.
Y'all make sure y'all back Ace Blade. But peace out, man. But yeah. So I read a ton of Batman. I grabbed a small sampling. Most of what I read on DC Universe Infinite, but I actually own the stuff too. Um, but yeah, so speaking of games, Suicide Squad games finally coming out in February. Most terrifying stuff. So with Scarecrows and Croc, no spoilers though. Word, word. My issue with playing video games is I'm not a gamer. So it's like I don't have the patience a lot of times. Like I'll play it for a little bit, but like when I'm playing video games, it's because I want to like de-stress real quick. So I'll play like Tony Hawk or like some racing game, but something where I gotta try too hard is not what I'm trying to do. Like if I'm in the mood to play video games, it's because I'm trying to blow off steam real quick. Now I'll play something like Injustice, or I can just do like arcade mode and beat up on a few people or whatever. But yeah, that's besides the point. So the first book that actually I read for Battober, at least completely, because I started out trying to read Dark Knight Returns. Um, but the first book I read was probably the most different uh, Batman story there is, right? And this is Creature of the Night. Batman Creature of the Night, written by Kurt Busiek, art by John Paul Leon. Uh, Fun fact, this is actually the last full story that John Paul Leon completed. And this story originally came out in single issues. It's 4 issues. And it came out kind of sporadically over like a 2-year period because John Paul Leon was going through cancer treatments and ultimately ended up passing from cancer early last year or like late 2021. And yeah, so this book is special to me for that reason. There's always some kind of milestone connection to everything I read. So I wanted to read this because I hadn't read it before. And John Paul Leon is like, the original static artist. And so I wanted to see that style. And if you've read Kurt Busiek's Superman Secret Identity, this is kind of like a companion book to that. Like it's not, I shouldn't call it a companion. The stories aren't related. They're not intertwined. They're not dependent on each other at all. But if you've read Secret Identity, then you'll know that it takes place in a world where like the DC comic superheroes aren't like heroes in that world. They like actually exist in comic books too. And this centers on the idea that this kid has like a bunch of stuff in common with Batman. And so Batman is his favorite superhero. He even has a very similar name. His name is Bruce Wainwright. And so he's got all this going on. He's got an uncle that he calls Alfred. So his life, he loves the fact that his name is Bruce Wainwright. And he collects all kinds of Batman merch and books and toys and all that. Well, when he suddenly becomes an orphan at the age of 8, now the similarities between him and Batman are just like way too close. And basically from that point on, he has like this creature, basically like you could call like a guardian demon of sorts. But this like Batman creature like does his bidding, does some investigating, rounds up criminals, and just, kind of takes over for him. And it is such an interesting story. So I feel you. You might not have ever heard of it. It's like I said, it came out so sporadically in single issues, and even this hardcover like kind of came and went during the pandemic. And I don't know that there's a lot of stuff that came out during the pandemic that I don't think people really know exists. But if you've never read Superman's Secret Identity works really well because it's like, even though it doesn't take place in like the main superhero continuity, it's a really cool like sort of thesis statement on what Superman is and the idea of Superman and how great it is. And what this is, all credit to Kurt Busiek, or much props to Kurt Busiek. Batman Creature of the Night is also kind of like a thesis statement on the idea of Batman and what are the dangers of a hero that is born out of such trauma, right? Like Superman's whole big thing is hope and, doing good for the sake of good. But when Batman, this explores some of the darker themes, but in my opinion, it kind of serves as like a critique of the idea of Batman. Like, can something born out of such pain and trauma and a spirit of vengeance and stuff, is that good for you? Can that be good for society around you? And the art is super moody. It's atmospheric. It's great. It's only 4 issues. And you'll have fun like finding all the parallels between like, this kid Bruce and Bruce Wayne in the comics. So it does a great job of like mixing in lore, even though this takes place in a different universe. So that's really cool. And I don't know. I think if I had to pick one of them, I'm probably picking Superman's Secret Identity instead of Batman Creature of the Night, only because it lives in such a hopeful place. Creature of the Night almost makes you feel guilty for being a Batman fan, but I think it works in that way because it doesn't worship the idea of Batman. It really gives you a sobering look. And John Paul Leon is a master. Like, getting to see John Paul Leon draw even a form of Batman is amazing. So this story is awesome. It's awesome. So Temple says, I would argue, though, that Superman's origin is more depressing, since not only he lost his family, he lost all his race and planet, although I agree Superman is more about hope and Bat's about darkness. I think the difference is that Batman decided to embrace the darkness in order to become who he became. And Clark became who he was by focusing on the hopeful aspects. And so that book was an interesting study on how that might happen. And there's an interesting like idea presented here that I won't spoil because I just don't want to. I want you to be able to experience the story for yourself. But it was really dope. I still can't find a Superman Up in the Sky trade paperback online since it released back in COVID. Ironically, I just pulled that story out in single issues because I've never read it. I bought this in dollar bins during the pandemic, but I missed out. I want to say they did a hardcover for it, Superman Up in the Sky. I want to say it got a standard size hardcover just like Batman Universe did, but I never bought it. So I just got these trade paper, or not even trade paperback. I got these single issues that I'm going to read for the first time, probably sometime next week. So that was my first Bat-tober read, and it was a really interesting take on the idea of Batman. And it started the month out strong, but I knew I couldn't make my first video be about this because it's not even about like the real Batman. So the next book that I read, what was the next thing I read? Is it here? Yes. This is Dark Knight, a true Batman story. This is written by Paul Dini, who you know from Batman the Animated Series. He wrote the Arkham Asylum game. What else has Paul Dini done that you know about? He had a great run on Detective Comics. There's a whole omnibus of Paul Dini's Detective Comics run, creator of Harley Quinn, among other things. So Dark Knight, a true Batman story. This, written by Paul Dini with art by Eduardo Risso. This is based on a true story, and it's kind of like a graphic novel memoir in a way. Basically, when Paul Dini was working on Batman the Animated Series, specifically during the time period where he was writing or assisting on the movie Mask of the Phantasm, he got mugged. And so he got mugged and basically went into a depression. And this is about how he got mugged, went into a state of depression, and how Batman helped him out of that depression. And so it's him narrating this story, but he talks about early on like how he's always sort of had characters from like cartoons and stuff that like talk to him in his head and stuff like that. And so he's basically, when he's mugged, he kind of blames Batman for not being there for him. And he ends up talking to Batman and the Joker and a bunch of other rogues and stuff, basically like battling them to come out of this depression. And Batman is like really trying to like force him out of it, like, hey, toughen up, Buttercup. And he's like, no, I don't want to write anymore. I don't want anything to do with superheroes. I don't believe in that stuff anymore. And this is about how he makes it out of that state. I thought it was a very interesting usage of Batman and the Rogues Gallery and using them as like stand-ins for like battling your own personal demons. And I mean, I believe it happened the way he says it happened in this book, but it was so interesting seeing it illustrated. Eduardo Russo Risso does a great job of painting a picture of this man, you know, who is, you know, by all accounts depressed, and the struggle for him to get out of it. Like you see him like in the hospital, he's going for surgery. He talks a lot about like how he's choosing shallow relationships because he doesn't like believe he deserves a real like love life. But I think my favorite parts of this book are when the Joker shows up, because the Joker really is like the sort of devil on your shoulder, and Batman is like the other devil on your shoulder. But he does a great job of just kind of giving personification to all these deep feelings that he has. There's one thing though that really got me about this book as I was kind of studying or reading so much Batman. There's a part where, here we go. It says it right here. So it's him talking to Batman in his head. And he says, look, I can't be you. No one can be you. This is Paul Dini talking to Batman. Yeah, theoretically, I could drop 60 pounds, do some pull-ups, and learn a couple judo throws. But even if I had started 20 years ago, I could never be what you are now. No one could. You are the unrealistic, unattainable extension of a child's power fantasy. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like Paul Dini just explained why like every kid loves Batman because every kid wants to like be able to fight anything and beat everyone, no matter how superpower they are, just with their smarts and stuff. And so I thought this also was a really interesting picture of like what the idea of Batman is at its core and why it resonates with so many people. So where Creature of the Night felt like kind of a warning as to the dangers of embracing something like Batman, this kind of spoke to why Batman can also be a source of hope. And that was really dope. So Dark Knight, a true Batman story. I'm not giving any of these books ratings, by the way. Paul Dini's in my top 5 Bat writers of all time, I gotta admit. Word. So I read that. Also read The Dark Knight Returns, but I only read issue 1. I read it in this leather-bound book, The Complete Frank Miller Batman, which also has Batman Year 1 in it. And this is like, if there's going to be like a last Batman story, then this is that. I've watched The Dark Knight Returns, the movie, which is pretty much a shot-for-shot adaptation, but I wanted to read the book. And of course, I got to the point where, well, I won't spoil it, but there's even a part in this book that really deals with like the idea that Batman is something to be suppressed, but it's like he's a separate part of Bruce Wayne. Like, so I'll read this page right here. This is basically Bruce having a nightmare of sorts. Well, he's seeing all this like negative stuff happening in the news. He's been retired for 10 years as Batman. So nobody's seen Batman for 10 years, and society has gone to crap because it's Gotham. And he's like watching all this stuff happening, people being mugged and shot and all kinds of calamity going on. And there's this internal monologue that happens. It says, the time has come. You know it in your soul, for I am your soul. You cannot escape me. You are puny. You are small. You're nothing. A hollow shell, a rusty trap that cannot hold me. Smoldering, I burn you. Burning you, I flare. Hot and bright and fierce and beautiful. You cannot stop me, not with wine or vows or the weight of age. You cannot stop me, but still you try. Still you run. You try to drown me out, but your voice is weak. And that is Batman basically berating Bruce as he emerges from his subconscious and takes over to go into action for the first time in 10 years. And I love that as a picture of Batman. Like, it's just crazy. Temple says, see, The Dark Knight Returns is great, but I have a love-hate relationship with it. Just hate how Frank Miller made my favorite character into a government puppy. So obviously, that's not what Supes is about. Yeah, it definitely makes a pointed choice with Superman, making him an agent of the government and whatnot. Story time with BJ Kicks. Word. So, yeah. So I only read the first issue of The Dark Knight Returns. I need to actually finish it and give it its own assessment. But what I loved about the reading choices that I made was that they all seem to offer like definitive statements about who Batman is and what he means, whether it's to the world, whether it's like to individuals that are fans or writers, or to himself, to Bruce Wayne. What does Batman mean to Bruce? To Bruce, maybe Batman is like a nuisance, like something that he wishes he could get rid of so he could live a normal life. But unfortunately, he can't get out, So that was cool. Another book I read was this Batman, The Black Mirror. I didn't read this during Batober. I read it a couple months ago. But this is a story not featuring Bruce Wayne as Batman, Dick Grayson as Batman. And basically, there's a serial killer on the loose, and we're trying to figure out who this serial killer is. At the same time, Jim Gordon's son comes back to town, and Basically we find out that he like committed a murder or something as a kid and got sent away. And now he's back. And we're like, okay, is he cured or is he still a murderer? And it's kind of like a clock ticking to find out like he is who we all think he is. And that is evil. But it's interesting because, like, in a way, we got the son of Bruce Wayne and the son of Jim Gordon living very different lives. But what I like about this is this makes the definitive case for why no one should be inheriting the mantle of Batman except Dick Grayson. Also, this has art by Jock and that super famous Joker cover, right? But it's also got art by Francisco Francavilla. And in my opinion, the Francavilla pages are like where the money is, where the gold is. Jock might have sold this book. Jock covers definitely sold this book. But man, between the line work and the colors, the atmosphere on those Francavilla pages, it's just amazing. And what's interesting is like Jock, even though like we know Jock for the sort of dark and moody covers he does, Jock does a really good job of like painting Dick Grayson in the light. Like when you see Dick Grayson on the page, he always looks hopeful. Even like, okay, that page is kind of gruesome. But like the palette, the color palette is just like kind of bright and stuff. But then when I go back to those Francavilla pages, it's very dark and moody. And it's like, yo, I love that juxtaposition. And that was a great story too. Yo, what's up, Brian? Temple says those are definitely great picks for a Bat-tober for sure. Appreciate that. I never read Black Mirror. As of now, I gotta ask: does this story tell that Dick is not Batman's true replacement because Dick is Batman's greatest success, which according to Bats, Dick topped him? This is not. There's not like a commentary from Batman in this book. Where is that? I feel like I just recently read a story where Batman gives Dick Grayson like a speech like that. That might have been how it was at the end of the Gotham War. I think that just happened in the Gotham War. That's probably what I'm thinking about. So that's something I read for Bat-tober. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I read very recently. What else is on my list? I like perused a bunch of stuff. Oh, White Knight. White Knight's the other book that I read for Bat-tober. Give me a second. Let me grab it. So this is Batman White Knight, written and drawn by Sean Gordon Murphy. And who is it on? Matt Hollingsworth does the colors. In this book, which is set in an alternate universe, the Murphyverse, as we now know it, we call it now, basically the Joker finds a way to cure himself. And when the Joker goes sane, he decides that the problem with Gotham is Batman. And it doesn't help that Batman's a little unhinged, right? Like Batman's like brutal. He's like, running over people, all kinds of stuff, right? But Joker goes sane and decides to go by his government name, Jack Napier, which I think comes from the '89 movie, and immediately just kind of goes on the offensive. He like sues the government for like basically like embracing the idea of Batman and all this stuff. And basically, this is about Joker or Jack Napier's plan to kind of rid Gotham of Batman in a way. But what's really cool about this is the way it flips a lot of different things. And Temple puts this a great way. White Knight is like DC's Ultimate Universe. Wish they gave other DC characters that treatment, like they did with Earth One. Yeah. So I could see that. I could see that comparison. It's like It's like DC's Ultimate Universe, being that it's not the main universe. It's not the universe you know, but it feels very familiar. All the characterization feels right to a certain degree. But it also kind of goes out of its way to like do new things that couldn't happen in the real universe. So like one thing that I'll spoil, because it happens really early on. We find out that there are 2 Harley Quinns. And I won't spoil how there are 2 Harley Quinns, but it's clear that the reason there are 2 Harley Quinns is because Sean Murphy just didn't like the new Harley Quinn design with like the 2 ponytails and the crop top shirt or whatever. He wanted to draw classic Harley Quinn in the onesie. And so he found a way to make that happen and then to turn the other Harley Quinn into something else entirely. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's pretty cool. Yeah, 3 Jokers is definitely canon. They just made that happen with the last issue of Gotham War. But I mean, the story is one thing in this book, but I think the real draw is the art for me. And that's not to like put the story down at all, because the story is really good. But the art is just something you're not getting from other Batman stories right now. Another thing that I thought was really interesting is that there are a lot of different like ideas that come about during this book that the main DC universe has like tried to do in a lot of different ways since. Like in this book, we get introduced to the idea that maybe Batman shouldn't exist and Gotham, or Batman should have given all his resources to Gotham. Like he should have shared his technology with the government. And so we can basically make the police force, can militarize them with all this Wayne technology and stuff like that, right? And so they do that. And that felt a little bit like the magistrate stuff that we got during Future State and then in Detective Comics for like, and Batman for like a year. Like all last year felt like a not great version of just a small piece of what they did in White Knight with the GTO. Another thing that happens in here is we deal with Alfred being unalived. And that's something that's been going on in regular DC stuff for a while. Alfred died in Batman 75 or so in the Tom King run. And it's like, okay. But like here, and maybe it's just because it's Elseworlds, it just works better. In the main universe, some of that stuff just doesn't really make sense. There's even like a point where the Bat family is going against Batman and they're split on how to handle things, which is basically what the Gotham War is right now. And it just works better. One, because this story is really concise, but also because it's another universe that feels familiar, but you can play around with it more. So Batman White Knight was a great read as well. There are some things in it. I'll save that for a different episode because I can't really elaborate the way I would want to. I'll have to do a dedicated, like, maybe I'll do a podcast episode on that. Also remember the Red Hood story in the White Knight verse. So yeah, in the first White Knight, we don't really get any Red Hood, but we get we find out how there could be a Red Hood. I guess I'll say that. Um, so that this I read in like 2 evenings. Like I stayed up till like midnight reading like the first 6 issues, and I read the next 2 issues like the next day. So definitely makes me want to read Curse of the White Knight and then Beyond the White Knight and all the other stuff. And on top of all that stuff happening with Batman, with the Joker and all that, we get well, so I guess the A plot is like the Joker stuff. Maybe the B plot is a Harley Quinn plot. The C plot is a very interesting connection between Bruce Wayne and Mr. Freeze. And man, the seeds that they sow in there is just really, really good stuff. I say it's like all Sean Murphy. He does the writing, he does the art. And that book is like a Batman fan's dream. He finds ways to incorporate like everything you love about Batman, all the vehicles, and all kinds of stuff. So if you've never read White Knight, read White Knight. And I think that's all of my Bat-tober reading. I'm working on a video. I don't know if it's going to come out tomorrow. Well, it's definitely not going to come out tomorrow because I haven't recorded it yet. But I'm working on like this idea for a pretty epic video about why Batman resonates so well with everybody. And for me, all of my Bat-tober reading sort of solidifies why I think Batman is the greatest. Not because he's a better superhero than Superman, but because Batman speaks to so many different types of people and so many different like stages of life. Like there's a Batman for everyone. And so as I'm fleshing that idea out through all these examples of, books that I've read in the last month, I'll make that video, or I don't know if it's going to be a video essay or a podcast episode or how I'm going to do it, but that's the next big project on my desk. But honestly, I recommend every single one of these Batman stories. If I had to pick one for you to read, it's probably White Knight. White Knight is probably the one to read. And then, I don't know. I mean, I like all these for different reasons. But if you want just a cool Batman story, read White Knight. It's probably the best thing that's happened in the last 5 years at DC Comics. Batman Creature of the Night was a really interesting psychological take on how Batman might exist through trauma. Dark Knight, A True Batman Story, is a very dark book, or a book about a very dark experience, but it shows how Batman can be a source of hope. So I like that. Batman the Black Mirror is a great detective story, and it's pretty deep. So I like that. And Dark Knight Returns, I won't give a recommendation, but so far I'm loving it. So all of those are my Bat-tober reads. There are so many other Batman stories, and I'll keep talking about them. Like I said, some of my favorites. White Knight probably makes the top 10 for me at least. Batman Ego, Batman and Son, the introduction of Damian Wayne. The Long Halloween is in my top 2. Black Mirror is probably top 5. Court of Owls is good. There's a lot of great Batman stories. And the reality is I could do a Bat-tober every month. I could review a Batman story 3 times a week for a year, and we'd barely scratch the surface. That's how much Batman there is out there. So every month is Bat-tober here at the Comics Are Dope, because I'm a big Batman fan. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me for 2 hours. If you did not catch the beginning of the stream, go back and watch that. We had some fun conversation about Batman, about the state of comics and comics media, and the potential for a Static Shock at live action film. And yeah, we talked about a lot of Batman. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. Go Make sure you back Ace Blade to get issue number 7 if you have not already, if you're interested. Oh, would love to hear your review on Batman Venom. I think I did Batman Venom in a community post. But real quick, I don't have a physical copy of Batman Venom, but Batman Venom is a story that basically deals with like what happens if Bruce Wayne was addicted to drugs. There is this scientist that has invented like what's basically a steroid to try to create like superhuman type people. And somehow Bruce Wayne like becomes addicted to it. I can't remember how exactly, but he becomes better at being Batman because he's on the drugs. And but in order to beat the scientist dude, because it turns out the scientist is like evil, in order to beat that scientist dude, he's got to like kick the habit. And so it's an interesting story about how that happens. And am I crazy, or does Bat Shark Repellent make an appearance in that story? I liked it. People love it. I get it. It didn't make my like top 10 Batman stories ever, but it's a very interesting story because it's Batman dealing with substance abuse. So that was pretty cool. And it's a part of a legend. It's in Legends of the Dark Knight. And let's see which issues is that. It's written by Denny O'Neil. And it takes place in so the Venom drug plays a major role in Nightfall. So this is like the origin of Venom, and Venom being the same thing that Bane uses to be the big steroid dude. But it's a good take on like I'll have to read it again. I haven't read it in a while. I read it like a year ago, but it's a human story for sure. We're so used to seeing Batman now where it's like he can beat anybody with enough prep time and so on and so forth. This really shows like how human he is and how susceptible he is to some of the same vices that maybe we lean unhealthily on. Legends of the Dark Knight issues 16 through 20 is what contains Venom. So that's a good story as well. It's not, again, I have to go back and read it again, but I feel like it's not one of those like seminal stories that can be like a thesis on Batman in the way that some of these other stories that I talked about today are, but still very good. But look, we're almost at the 2-hour mark and I started this late. So I'm going to have to end this stream, but I appreciate you guys rocking with me. Thanks for hanging out. We'll do this again. Probably won't do one of these before Thanksgiving, but we'll do another one before Christmas to close out the year. Thank you all for being here. And I appreciate you. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, but read something dope today. Peace.